I'll never forget the sound, that deep, grinding diesel growl that ripped through the 6 o'clock quiet like a chainsaw through silk. I opened my front door, still blinking the sleep out of my eyes, and there it was. A massive yellow excavator, its claw raised, staring at my little cabin like a hungry prehistoric bird deciding where to strike first. And standing right behind it, naturally, was Vivian Sterling, president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, wearing a suit that screamed, "Discount Power Broker," and that smile. Oh, that smile was pure, uncut smugness, like she knew a secret about the universe that you didn't. Before I could even choke out a "this is private property," the machine lunged. My grandfather's cabin, a solid 70-year-old oak structure, handcrafted, filled with my whole history since I inherited it 2 years ago, was instantly reduced to kindling. It was a scream that didn't stop, splinters and dust everywhere. 17 years of memories turning into a pile of trash because this woman decided it needed beautification. No warning, no letter, just pure, unadulterated HOA hubris. It was over in maybe 15 minutes, and when the dust settled, she actually handed me a slip, a fine demanding I clean up the mess of the home she had just destroyed. Ever had your life bulldozed before breakfast? Because that's how my Monday started. I had been living the quiet life, freelance architectural visualization, coffee on the porch, watching the sun hit Lake Serene. This cabin, the Osprey, was more than just a house. My grandpa, Arthur Finch, built it in '58, back when this was all dirt roads and wild pines. It was my connection to him, the only real home I'd ever known since my parents passed. And now, Vivian had traded 70 years of heritage for a community walking path. I was furious, sure, but mostly just lost. I spent the next day talking to people, trying to figure out how this Vivian Sterling had developed such a god complex. Turns out, she moved in about a year ago, fresh off a messy, high-profile divorce, lost her mansion, lost her status, lost control. So, she decided to take control of Willow Creek. First, it was a fine for Mrs. Gable's pink flamingos, then forcing the Harrisons to paint their perfectly nice gray house a more architecturally consistent beige. This HOA was her new empire, and she was the queen demanding absolute loyalty. My rustic old-school cabin was just collateral damage in the way of her upscale lakefront vision. When I finally tracked her down at her so-called administrative center, which was really just her 2-car garage with a card table and a painfully pretentious hand-painted sign, I tried to reason with her. I stood there covered in dust holding the crumpled fine, and she just talked around me, all corporate jargon and condescension. "Mr. Eastman," she kept saying, "your structure was a blight. An emergency action was required to prevent the further deterioration of standards. It's all legal, all procedural." She was smooth, I'll give her that. She was a professional bully hiding behind a binder full of nonsense. The meeting ended with her hitting me with a final, non-negotiable demand. $7,500 in total fees and cleanup costs, due in 48 hours. Or she would pursue legal action. "It would be such a shame if this had to get complicated, sweetie," she purred, the faux sweetness thick enough to choke on. As I walked back to my truck, completely defeated, my old neighbor, Ilara Petrova, waved me over. Ilara, a retired history professor, had lived here since the '70s. She gave me a sympathetic, knowing look. "Vivian and her clipboard. She thinks she's untouchable," Ilara muttered, glancing over her shoulder. "Mark, your grandfather left something with me. He told me if anyone ever messed with your property, I had to give you this box. I think it's time." She led me down to her dim basement, pulling out a heavy, dark wooden box, antique. Brass hinges green with age. Inside, carefully sealed in plastic sleeves, were documents yellowed with time. On top was a land survey map. And that's when my heart stopped beating normally. I traced the property lines with my finger, confused. "Ilara, this is wrong. This map shows Grandpa owning the whole shoreline way beyond my cabin. I thought he only had the little lot." Ilara's eyes twinkled, a mix of satisfaction and sadness. Arthur was a clever man, Mark. Back in '58, he didn't just buy a lot. He bought the entire parcel. He subdivided it himself, sold off the lots to create this neighborhood, but he kept the lakefront. He always said the Finch family needed to hold the key to the estate. And then it hit me, a freight train of realization. Not only had Vivian demolished my home on my land, but the very amenities she was touting, the beach access, the boat launch, the entire stretch of shoreline she was building her walking path on, and the crown jewel of her tiny empire, the Willow Creek Estates Clubhouse, were all sitting on property that belonged to me. Me, the guy she just tried to bankrupt and kick out in Superman pajamas. The woman who treated me like a powerless squatter. She was the trespasser. Her entire foundation of authority was literally built on my ground. I didn't just own the cabin site. I was the de facto landlord of the entire community waterfront. I thanked Alara, not bothering to hide the grin that was cracking my face, and drove straight back to the clubhouse. I parked right by the entrance, got out, and walked up to the building, trying to look like I owned the place, which technically I did. I knocked on the door. Vivian opened it, mid-sentence, her expression instantly freezing into an irritated mask. "Mr. Eastman, this is a private board meeting. Unless you're here with the certified check, I must ask you to leave." I gave her my best, most genuine smile of the week, the one that felt like a punch. "Actually, Vivian," I said, holding Sua up the county stamp survey map, making sure she saw the official seals, "I think we need to talk about my payment arrangements. Nice clubhouse you have here. It's a shame it's sitting on my land without my permission. I think it's time we discussed rent." The look on Vivian Sterling's face was cinematic. The veneer of her confidence just cracked, like glass under too much pressure. For a second, I saw the scared, desperate woman underneath the discount power suit. She snatched the papers, her eyes scanning them furiously for any loophole, any forgery. But the county seals don't lie. Her nervous board members crowded around, whispering, watching their queen's authority visibly crumble. Vivian, being Vivian, tried to regain control by calling an emergency community meeting that evening, a rally, to frame me as the money-grubbing troublemaker, trying to hold the whole neighborhood hostage. I walked into the clubhouse that night, which was just delicious irony, and watched her try to spin this into a community defense fund. She talked about standards, about property values. Then she threw down her big rhetorical question. If Mr. Eastman truly owns this land, why has he been letting the HOA maintain it, improve it, pay for its upkeep all these years? That was her mistake. I stood up slowly, letting the room quiet down. "You want to know where I've been, Vivian? I've been living quietly in my grandfather's cabin, respecting my neighbors and not bothering anyone. I didn't know I owned all this, and because my grandfather never told me, he left me the cabin and he trusted I'd figure out the rest when I needed to. Well, now I need to." I faced the room, not her. "I don't want to shut down access. I don't want to tear down the clubhouse. I just want fair compensation for the cabin you illegally destroyed, and a reasonable rental agreement for the community's continued use of my property." The place exploded into arguments. Factions formed instantly. The Negotiate Now group versus the Fight in Court camp. Vivian had lost control of her empire. The next few weeks were war. Vivian hired a cheap lawyer and filed a ridiculous lawsuit claiming my deeds were forgeries, an aggressive move designed to stall me in legal fees. But I had my ace. I discovered that in her rush to destroy my cabin, she had failed to obtain a single mandatory thing, a county demolition permit. Her own affidavit, claiming she followed due diligence, was proof that she had either lied to the county or committed illegal destruction of property. Either way, she had handed me the evidence to take her down. I filed my own lawsuit. Illegal. Destruction of property and abuse of authority. The court hearing arrived 3 months later. I represented myself. The facts were simple enough they didn't need a lawyer to cloud them. Judge Loretta Quinn was sharp, a facts-first kind of person. I presented my grandfather's deeds, the survey maps, the tax records, and then the photos of the rubble, followed by the complete lack of any permit or notice. Then came the moment of truth. Judge Quinn looked directly at a pale Vivian. "Ms. Sterling, can you show the court the demolition permit you obtained before ordering Mr. Eastman's cabin destroyed?" Vivian's lawyer objected, flailing, but the judge overrode him. "The permit, Sterling. I'd like to see it." She just sat there, red-faced, silent for an agonizing 10 seconds. Finally, barely a whisper, "There was no permit, Your Honor. It was an emergency action to maintain community standards. And that was it. That was the nail in the coffin." Judge Quinn leaned forward, her voice steel. "Miss Sterling, are you telling this court that you believe HOA authority supersedes county building codes, state property laws, and constitutional due process rights?" Vivian, completely exposed and hysterical, blurted out, "I was protecting the community. Someone had to take action." The ruling was swift, decisive, and beautifully brutal. Vivian Sterling was found liable for illegal destruction of property and ordered to pay $120,000 in damages, covering the full replacement cost, plus interest and legal fees. The Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association was immediately dissolved for irregular practices. But the real kicker, Judge Quinn referred the matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution related to destruction of property and misuse of position. Vivian's face went white. She hadn't just lost a lawsuit, she was looking at jail time. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the porch of my new cabin. Bigger, better, built with the settlement money. I also built a proper community dock and picnic area. On my land, of course, but offered to the community with a clear, reasonable agreement. Vivian was forced to sell her house to pay the judgment and fled the state, avoiding the ongoing criminal investigation. The neighborhood is actually better now, happier with no queen to fear. Just yesterday my phone rang, an attorney from a lakefront community 50 miles away. "Mr. Eastman," he said, "we have a situation with an HOA president who's been illegally demolishing residents' property. We were wondering if you might be willing to share your experience and possibly assist with our case." I looked out at Lake Serene, remembering my grandfather's quiet, strategic wisdom. "I think I can help with that," I said. "When do you need me?" "Some battles are worth fighting, not just for yourself, but to make sure the consequences come calling for the bullies. If you enjoyed watching a power-hungry bully get the exact, legally satisfying karma she deserved, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of justice served cold. And let me know in the comments, what was Vivian Sterling's single biggest mistake, thinking she was above the law or messing with the wrong grandson? I love reading your takes on who owns the power in these community conflicts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.